find it, we can get a copy from them.
Right, we'll put all that together.
So basically, we're talking about the civilian pay increase is 2%, is that what you said? So your recommendation is that we give a 2% civilian and pay increase, and does that correspond to something in collective bargaining comparable? Is that
correct? That was the one piece of the contract I guess we've got to talk about because of its budget impact, is that police and fire were good enough, and I think we've shown some good teamwork together, that they would accept whatever the increase is to the civilians. So rather than them trying to get ahead of the civilians and so forth, so it would effectively become an across the board. Appointed officials would not be included, and then anyone else who had recently been hired, let's say in the last 6 months, or given a promotion, we try not to include some of those folks unless they're
So we're not getting a pay raise? Is that what you're saying?
Actually,
is that what you're saying?
The zero, you will get a 2% on your zero. Yes.
Are you saying that if the council voted to give a civilian pay increase of 1% or 1.5% instead, that not only would the civilian pay increase number come down, but also the collective bargaining number would come down?
Correct.
And you had passed out at some point a history.
Yes.
Pay increases. I don't know if I still have that here. Does anyone have those? Maybe that went to the finance department and not to the council.
Right, you can see it. So the pattern that we saw was every few years there'd be an adjustment in prior years before the storm. And since the storm, there was a pay cut. The pay cut was restored. There was a small cost of living increase that was given in 2009. And since then, we haven't done anything for our folks. So.
Is there an opposition to the 2%?
I'd like to see that chart.
Sure,
I don't know.
Somewhere in my stack over here.
We got a copy first.
The question is there an opposition to 2%?
I just want to see the history.
She just wanted, she just asked the question.
I'd like to see where we are on
We figured this.
And does your chart include increases to the amounts that we're paying to the pension funds also?
Our numbers are total impact numbers.
Okay.
So it would show total impact there would be some cascading into the pension funds.
Because we have increased the percentage that we're paying into the pension funds in recent years also.
Right, now we're proposing, the current budget actually, before we talked to TMRS, proposed an increase in the percentage of what we're paying in the PEN system. I'm hoping not to be able to do that, in fact, to produce that we just talked about. So we figure from a market-based standpoint, we're roughly 10% below other cities within our service level. In the civilian workforce, the public safety is caught. They've been able to catch up more due to collective bargaining and so forth. They've been able to stay with the market closer, and they're fairly close to where the other folks are. They're maybe a little bit behind. We think this will bring them pretty close to the market level. Within the ranks, there's some disparity within the ranks, but the good news is turnover within the ranks. There's not an area that looks too bad. Perhaps in police, in the early years, we still have some exposure. When they get a few years of training under their belt, and because of the opportunity in the region, we may have some exposure there from a market standpoint. It would be probably a good idea to do a market study at some point, maybe next year, if we can fund that in the budget next year, or conduct that ourselves to do some sort of market analysis. The costs of those are sometimes significant, so that's what prevents a lot of cities from taking action along those studies.
Okay, but this doesn't show the increases to the pension fund by the city, does it? For these, because I know we've increased our contributions during this time period, because we start here in 2003.
Judy, do you remember right now we're at 9% for the civilian pension plan?
Yes, sir, we are.
And which years did we increase our contribution levels?
I'd have to ask Jose, but I can go.
He's right there.
We increased it, it's an 03, 04, from 4.75 to 6% for our employees.
Civilian?
Yes,
And then, and where are we now?
that's 6% now.
Okay, what about police and fire? When did we, during this time period between 2003 and now, when have we increased our
They
contribution?
did it in their contract in 07 for police, and it's been steadily going up. They're at 12%, I believe.
So where was it before?
It was a 9 then.
It's Social Security.
And then it went up to 12?
They've been increasing it up to
What about fire?
14.
And
But they don't
where
pay
was
Social
it in
Security.
They
2000?
don't pay Social Security.
Where was it in 2003?
In 2003, I'd have to look.
No, we're talking about the city's contribution. The city's contribution to the police is now at 12%. Is that correct?
It's now, it's 12
And,
now.
okay, and fire, we're at 14%? And has that increased between 2003 and now?
Yes, it has. They started doing it on their side, the highest part.
So you don't know where we
I
started?
don't know where it's starting up now. I have to go back and look at the contract.
So we did 2.5% in 2004. Salary adjustments based on salary surveys. Do you know what percentage that resulted in across the average, across the board, those raises in 2005?
What the average was?
And it was a very few
It was-
select people.
No, that was across the board. For different ones, different individuals by
For
different
the market
categories.
survey?
Yes, because it went for laborers, they were down so far.
But not everybody got a raise, is all I'm saying.
Yes, they did.
I didn't get
In
it.
05, when you were executive, I remember that, because I went into the salary survey with TML. We went by groups of employees, like administrative assistants, secretarial staff. We're down so far. The superintendents out in the field. Everybody got different, because it was so push-wash. We haven't had a actual survey from an outside since the Congress study. I think that was in 02 or 2000.
So in 2005, would you say that that would have been about what percentage of a increase was that in 2005?
Probably 4 to 5.
4 to 5%?
Yeah, on average.
Can I ask why we're going there, going back 7, 8 years? To help me understand why we're...
I'm just wondering how much we've increased salaries since 2004.
Well, if you look, it's pretty much based on cost of living over across.
You know, I was just looking at that, it's really not.
Well, inflation, there's all...
No, I'm looking at CPI numbers, that's what I'm looking at. These don't really reflect CPI, so I'm not sure how they got them, but if these are the exact numbers, they don't reflect CPI.
Meaning they're higher or lower?
Because one of these years CPI, the CPI was negative.
Yeah.
I think that was
2009.
2008,
2009.
So it's 2.5.
But it's hard to look at that because the cost of living in Galveston's gone up because of our insurance and our taxes and other things. So we're trying to base it on a local level.
So, but we've increased salaries since 2004 by 21%. Is that right?
Well, we decreased in 2009.
Well, you
Yeah,
knock
but we
off
put it
3%.
back, we put that back in 2000. Well, in 2009, we went up 6%, which included...
Decrease. I think the decrease.
So we reinstated the decrease, so that wouldn't count. That's only a 3% net, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So it's 18%.
So just some quick stats on the mayor made a mention about Islanders. Currently 45% of the workforce is Islanders, and we have how many employees? Over 730, 725?
With part-timers, yes, about 730.
So I'm going to run it at 730 we have, not that many. We have 328 and a half islanders on the payroll.
And how many non-islanders? Is that, I'm sorry.
55% are non-islanders.
So what does that mean?
About
400.
And I wonder,
Mr. City Manager, are you recommending a 2%? You're saying this is a recommendation from your office?
Well, based on cost of living at 1.7 for the last year, we can't keep up.
Okay.
We can't really keep up from pre-storm, and we can't really go back for prior years because of we want to get too deep into that. So we're proposing
It seems reasonable.
It's a stabilization. It's a stabilization and a morale booster.
I'm surprised the mayor wants to give would only want to give a rate increase for the employees who live on the island. That way you encourage them to
You
move
can't,
over.
by law, you can't do that. I would love to do that, but that, you can't do that. Ms. Banks, do you have a thought on, you okay with the 2%?
I wanted to know, and this, we're talking even the civilian? Yes. The civilian employees that are not necessarily, I've been kind of concerned about them.
What's your thoughts on 2%?
Oh, gosh. They haven't had one since 2009. This is the way I come across on this, and I understand the need for increases in wages, but I also think that, this is public taxes, and a lot of people are unemployed, and we're giving raises out, and I think that's going to be a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people. People at work in general, corporations across America are becoming more efficient through shrinking. They're spending less. They're not giving as many raises. They're putting...
Your unemployment rate in Galveston is less than 7%? We're below the national average.
It's like 6.7.
So I don't see how unemployment plays into our employees.
Well, for the people that might be the unemployment, but we don't have is what you call underemployment, which, and I know you're aware of. There are a lot of underemployed people on this island. So I would bet as a measure of productivity, excluding UTMB, our GDP, so to speak, has been flat for the last 4 or 5 years.
And the reason
where do you come down on it? You were saying something that you didn't net out for us.
Ms. Rob, do you have a comment on the 2%?
Yeah. I don't have a problem with it.
You're okay with it? Ms. Carlson?
I just want to hear what she's coming up and what's normal.
Well, you can come up with all kinds of numbers. We're basically looking at a 2% increase that they haven't had in 2 years, 3 years.
Well, when you look at these machines,
Right.
This is just a quick survey done by our Human Resources Department, but they've pulled, there's a cluster of cities that we compare ourselves to in the $50,000 to $100,000 population range, which we think fits Galveston a little bit better than the 25 to 50,000 population range because of the service level. So there's a lot of philosophies of why you give people an increase in their pay. There's merit-based. There's all sorts of different areas, but the real reason that we do it is so that we can attract and keep good staff. And that's the real, when we get down to kind of a market base, what's happening around us, what's going on in industry, what's going on in other cities, where are we pulling our people from, and how are we be able to fill our positions. We don't really have problem getting laborers. We don't have as much problem in management, though I've had some recruitment issues at management level. Where we're getting killed is the skilled labor, and that's where we'll have to come back with a market. We can't fix that with a small increase. This can only try and stabilize our workforce, try to keep them moving, and try to give them some hope, and then we'll have to come back in with something like a market study to really target some of those where we're very low. We've got, like, for example, equipment operators and things like that, where we're having some trouble recruiting.
Do you want to share that with us as well?
Oh, it's the same thing we got.
What
I
do you
just
get
gave
the
it to her.
percentages? compared to
No,
Boston?
this is just CPI numbers. That's all.
Would you like to look at that?
Thanks.
I don't want to put the city manager in a bad spot, because basically he's the CEO of this building. But I would just ask him and everybody else to be aware that, as a nation, we ain't doing well. And so, let's try to keep that in mind when we're giving out raises or spending on anything. We have to be able to show that we're giving really good value for money, because every corporation, every small business in this country is scrimping and saving, to eke out a profit and make ends meet.
Yeah.
So we,
This was still
Yeah, I was going to say, according to
the
this,
national average.
the people can't eat.
This is the Texas, this is a comparison to Texas municipal league cities within the 1,500,000 population, 50 to 75,000 population range.
how would it differ if it was for our actual population, since we're below that?
Low to 47, you compare the 20, about 25,000 to 50,000, or
Could you get
49,000.
those numbers for us?
But what about the 400,000 we have every weekend? What about the 500,000 in special events?
I'd still like to see the numbers for cities that actually have these.
What about also two tax base? How are these cities that are all doing the comparison with, what kind of tax base do they have?
The ones in that one is Baytown.
Heavy industry.
What cities are they?
Baytown, I have to get all the cities.
Right.
You want to get that from upstairs real quick, Kit? Jordan, do you remember?
So you can pull up 25 to 50,000 for us also.
Okay.
And,
Because I'll tell you, if you were going to do a metric, what I would want to see the metric of would be the city of Galveston versus TML, and each of those put in terms of percent to mean salary from the respective cities.
But what hurts us is the salaries that are made here are recorded on the mainland where they live. So it really skews with the actual salaries of Galveston residents.
oh, I know. It's not like we can stimulate our own economy by
No, but
giving
I'm just
raises
saying-
to our employees, because most of them live off the island. So these numbers you have here in your general fund, you're on page 8, we show that it's going to be an increase to the general fund to give a 2% pay increase across the board of $366,429. And that's adding the collective bargaining component and the civilian pay increase.
Right.
Does that include the city's contributions to the pension fund and the increase to those contributions that will increase with pay increases?
I would assume.
Jimmy, how to get a question now?
Debbie, I think that's an all-in number?
Yes.
It's an all-in, yes, so it includes
So that
all those.
includes the increase to our pension fund
Yes.
contributions
Yes.
as well? Okay.
Yes.
So really, the cost to the general fund of this pay increase is about $366,000. That's what it's going to cost us to do it. And it will mean that since 2004, our employees will have, or if we do it, we will have seen pay increases of 20% since 2004. Because we're at 18% now. So that's just something we have to, I'm not prepared today to say yea or nay. I'd like to get feedback from the public before I commit to it. I'm not saying I'm against it, because that would be inaccurate. But I am interested in getting some responses from my constituents about it.
About raising the salaries of our city employees, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
But if you also tied to the cost of living, that Norm did here,
Yeah.
that's like in excess of 22%. You just said then collective, it was 18, so we're actually under the rate of the cost of living.
Yeah.
Up until now, we're at 18. If we give 2% this year, then we will have given, I mean, they compound, of course, and I didn't compound this.
Right, and so does the cost of living.
Yeah, so it'll actually be a little higher because I didn't compound it. But
People are worse off, and I think our challenge for municipal government is our sector's in decline. It's going to be in decline for the next decade. It's not a good place to be. People get into this line of work because they want to serve, and we're always victims because we're the last ones to, the utility companies do their thing and the federal government does their thing. Typically, that's the way it goes. But we accept, our folks accept that, and they want to do a good job for us. And we just, as a policy-making body, we have to decide if we're going to cascade what's happening in the general economy into our folks and continue to degrade the pays over time, or if we're going to try and at least keep up a little bit with what's happening. And we realize that we need more tax, we need more tax money coming into the city. We thought we'd have a lot more with the values that came in, and we didn't get it. But we tried to shuffle the budget around and try to prioritize and put people first and show them that we want to try to help them. So that's up to you all. It's $360,000 plus there's additional funds in the utility accounts which are built in for the rate increases. So it cascades into the other funds too.
Ms. Banks?
Yes. So if I look at the reasons that in 2009 there was a decrease in salaries, or they didn't take salaries.
they didn't take their pay.
They didn't take their pay increase. The same for 2010 and 2011. Is that true? Is that what it is?
No, because we didn't give any.
We didn't give any
Right.
increases. Okay. And so now we're here, 2012. And when I look at the TML averages, and then I see Galveston's average, and then the difference. And you're also saying that, for instance, a person, if they were making facetiously $18,000 a year, you took out, and their pension is included in there, as well as their benefits, or maybe you don't get any.
Oh, this page that Jose has put together, this is just salary, I think.
Just salary.
Yeah, there's not benefits.
No, so benefits are not in there.
Our benefits are not typically as good as other cities.
No, I know, yeah. So if there was an increase in benefits, then it ends up being a decrease in the salary if the person chose to take the benefit. So they're really not getting an increase in salary. Right?
Oh, you're talking from the health care costs.
Yes.
Oh, that's a whole other.
That's a whole other
problem. Yeah, that's kind of a national problem that's bit all American workers, is our health care system. And our folks have not been shielded from that either.
Right, so that's why I am for us giving them an increase.
The
at
other
this
thing
time.
I'd like for, just to throw it out there too, since the storm, a lot of the business here on the island have been suffering, and I know that they've done tremendous cutbacks, and also have had a lot of staff be able, to not, leave. Plus, we've had to take personal cutbacks in our own pay. So I think pretty much that was a citywide thing that we've all had to endure because of Hurricane Ike. And in my profession and some of the other professions, likeable, agents can make more money off this island than they can on this island. It's just different. I mean, if you come and move to the island, you're not going to make the same pay that you're going to make off the island. And I think that's pretty much proven just about most of the regular categories that you can be in. So we got to take that into considerations, because all these mom and pop businesses that are out there that are suffering, and when we have to pay our payroll taxes and do all of the things, we have to cut back too. And for them to see if we do a 2% or if we just do a 1%, but people will be judging that, saying, look, I'm the one that have to pay the taxes. I'm the one that has to pay the bills, and I haven't gotten a pay raise since 2008 or 2007. So we do need to take that into consideration too.
Find it, we can get a copy from them.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask, is there any way that we can tell how many employees have left to go somewhere else based upon the salaries increase? And the reason I said, I know that in some cases, those that, can work here in 20 years, retire, and they go across the bridge and get more money.
That's my point.
Yeah. So I'm just saying.
But I mean, I cannot pay what somebody in Houston, the way it is here in Galveston, because we pretty much pay our agents the same, and then they'll make their commissions and stuff on the side. Whereas that's why they would want to go to Houston, because they are able to make a rate of pay that would be higher than what would be offered here in Galveston. It's not just the city, it's all over, unless you're in a tourist type business, where I think maybe then they probably are able to compete.
And then I'm going to finish what I was saying. I'm just saying the reason I am for the increase, regardless, they did take a decrease. I'm looking at being the person who's their boss right now, or helping their boss to help our employees continue to work and have an incentive not to go somewhere else, have an incentive to take care of themselves. And I'm looking at the other side of the picture, including the benefits, and that is just personally my idea.
My hand was first. Technically, you're not the boss.
No, I said that
taxpayers are the boss, and we do have to realize that. And of course, everybody wants to make sure that city employees and everybody gets a pay raise. But we also have to look at our taxpayers that we are going to and asking them that we're increasing their taxes in water and sanitation and sewer and all over, when they are actually taking cutbacks in their own homes, have not gotten pay raises. And I know there's a lot of people who live in your district who are not making the money what they probably were making before Ike, and some are unemployed now.
Mr. Mayor, can I just answer?
I want to say something, and I'm going to say that. How do you know people aren't getting raises, and how do you know people aren't making more money now? You don't know that. Okay. And the other thing is, this is not a bonus.
No.
This is a necessity for these people to keep a quality of life. Their expenses have gone up. Ms. Banks, would you like to say something?
I just wanted to finish in saying, I know that the taxpayers, yes, or myself, what I call myself now the retired poor, okay? I look at the fact that they want good services, and so they want the folk who are giving us those services, the sanitation, to keep picking it up, the persons who are doing whatever services for the city to make life better for our tax-paying people. And so that is why I'm for it. I'm not saying that you're not right. No, about the boss. When I said that, I was saying that this gentleman in our municipality, who is the city manager, is the person who in fact is over the employees in this municipality. I do know that we as a city council, 1/7, are here to support the person who is in charge of being in charge of this building and its employees. That's it.
Ms. Robb?
I don't know. To me, you have to factor in 2010, there were new increases. 2011, there were new increases. 2012, that's where factoring or what would start in January 2013. So the cost of living increase over that time is 7.19%. And their income have stayed flat. And I know everyone in the world is suffering. What we're talking about is a 2% increase when, if you look at the period of time that they haven't had any increases, and the cost of living was 7.19. So we're still in negative figures, and our average salaries are below it. You can't run a city without staff. So you have to do something.
We've been running the staff, we've been running the city. And also, you can not have as many employees and pay the employees that you do have more if you didn't have as many employees. So that's where we start having the but that's what I'm talking about. When you start looking back, you look at the quality of the person that you are hiring. You also look at the quality, how much you're going to pay this person compared to the other type of person you may hire at a lower rate. But again, too, a lot of these businesses on the island have not been able to give pay raises to their own employees because of the economy of what we're going through. And that I do know because I do business with a ton of business on this island. And I do their insurance.
I do too, and I know that some of these businesses are very successful and they're thriving.
Your clientele is different from mine. I have just,
No.
well, you're right, I don't, but again, I see what the gross annual receipts that these businesses are making. And I'm telling you, a lot of them are not, they have been going some down, some stagnant, but they have had to keep their pay at the same rate. So.
Can you tell us what the impact will be on the enterprise fund? I know on the general fund it's $366,000. Can you tell us what it will be on waterworks, sewer? Is there do we have separate employees under drainage?
Yes.
And then also...
Pay increase?
Yeah.
It's on page 9 of the transmittal letter. The civilian pay increase, your pension increase is $749,000.
It's on page 9 or 8?
9 would be the enterprise funds, which drainage, water, sewer, sanitation.
No, I'm talking about what the pay increase would be in each of those.
The bottom of page 9, 149,000. Civilian pay and pension increase.
Well, it says here, doesn't it, that the civilian pay increase is $119,000 out of the general fund.
And then out of the enterprise.
And so you're saying that including the enterprise, all of the enterprise funds, you only go up $30,000? That's what the pay and pension...
It's $150 for those funds.
Oh, it's just out of the enterprise funds?
Right.
Okay. And as an aside, can you tell us, Mr. Sanchez, or could you give us information about, you say 55% of the city's employees live off island. Could we see from salaries, whether it's our high salary positions that are off the island versus our low salary positions? Do you have that data? You could figure that for us and let us know.
Yeah, I'd have to look to see what you want.
I just want to know how many of these big paychecks we write cross the bridge.
I'd like, each one of these, I assume, is from a different city?
Depending on the position. Depending on the position, some cities don't have the same positions as this. We just run it out.
Could you give me the TML mean?
For that group?
Yeah.
That group for each position?
No. The TML mean citizens' wages. So what each citizen, in this average, what the mean
Average wage in the community?
No, because George Mitchell will make everybody make $200,000 a year on average. So the mean.
Is that information available per city, the mean?
Yeah, the Bureau of Labor Standards should have it.
The census track information.
Okay, so I get you. So across the board, it's 366 plus 149 is what we're talking about. Not just in the general fund, but throughout all funds. And we've heard some positive comments about it from 3 council members, and we have some who aren't ready to commit yet. I'd very much like to see our employees get these pay increases. I'd like to see them get even more than that. And if it were my own money, I'd say yes right now. But given the fact that it's not my own money, I feel like I need to get some feedback from my constituents before I sign off on that.
Can I add something real quick? We're talking about the positions and everything the council's concerned about. We're still down about 80 positions since prior to Ike. And the staff that is still currently here, that's stuck throughout the city with Ike, are doing a lot more work. Pretty much the sentiment, and it's for all cities, do more with less. We're doing a lot more jobs, cross-training, trying to be a more efficient city with less staff. So I want to remind council of that.
Would we have the option of giving increases to our lower paid employees? Giving them
I think that's
more,
Mr. Kovacs. Yes.
you know?
We can,
Does that cause salary compression or?
well,
You're going to skew
and
the salary.
that's why we hadn't come with really any kind of elaborate market survey. We just wanted to kind of give you some general information and propose a kind of a market adjustment, or what we call a market adjustment, or a cost of living, to try and keep up with what's happening. We'd like to do a more detailed study, because if we give, we can kind of like we were talking about, we can recruit at the bottom, we can kind of recruit at the top. We're having some issues there too, but that middle is where we're getting really hurt.
But don't you think if you're going to start being selected, you have to do it by performance of each employee, and then you're really going to get into a class of employees?
Yeah, I've administered performance-based systems as well, as opposed to a cost of living. And there's pluses and minuses in that.
Well, to be true, one area that, we could start doing that once we get Glenn's office up and rolling, because he's going to be able to tell us what departments are operating most efficiently, operationally and financially. So once we get his department, humming along, we can absolutely target it that way.
Any more discussion?
On the general fund, is that what we're on?